I just want to touch base today on something that goes along with consciousness and becoming more conscious of our surroundings and what that really means and how that translates outside of just hashtags, because I know that mindfulness and all these things are sort of thrown into the consciousness pile. And we know, at least we should know, about 10 years ago when that mindfulness stuff was really coming to the forefront of some big, huge realization or finding. After a couple years, people started coming out and saying like how dangerous it was and how bad it was and the side effects of being quote unquote mindful, and about how these people were becoming more mindful and then they were having like anxiety attacks or becoming non-lifeable. I'm trying to think of a word to say it without saying it, unalived, depressed, all these things. And so what was really going on is that people are so unconscious day to day. And the way I think of it too is, you know, they say we use 1% of our brain. I believe we use 1% of our consciousness. And I know too, just from reading Steiner's work and his interpretation of things as a sightseer himself and his opinions, I know that our consciousness has changed. I know that our consciousness has dulled considerably the last 100 years, and that's not by accident. And so we know that there's many things that affect our consciousness outside of just medications, but also media, all those aspects of technology. So there's aromatic influences, and then there's also messages, gaslighting in our educational system, at our work. Every time we start to be conscious of something or we see something, no, you didn't see it, or you're gonna lose your job, or that's not being a team player. I mean, that's at least what I got. That's why I had to get out of nursing, because I was too conscious. I wasn't willing to give up my consciousness, which was connected to my moral code to be a nurse. And that's exactly what was required. So one thing that I really appreciate about Steiner's work, and I want to connect this to Reich's work, is about the terror of living, and how I understand the terror of living. And Reich described it as when you're in therapy and your armors start to become dissolved and you start having breakthroughs and you start becoming more conscious of your life and surroundings. People experience in therapy something called the terror of living. And it was something I knew when I was in therapy I had already experienced, because I've been experiencing the terror of living most of my life. I have very clear memories of when it happened to me, and they were moments actually where I had terror of living moments or events where I would be sitting in the bathtub and I would have this realization like I'm alive, and then it would come on really quickly and I would say like, this is my life, this is who I am. I would start looking at my hands and my body and in the moment, and there was a sense of panic and terror, but I think it's something that I've been so useful in my life. It's not something that popped up in therapy. So it wasn't something for me, that was a surprise or exclusive to that. It's something that I basically believe I've had fully conscious moments in my life. And I think there's an understanding just in general, nobody can be fully conscious all the time. We wouldn't be able to get through life a day. I don't know how many minutes, but being fully conscious takes extreme amounts of energy, and it takes an extreme amount of rationalization to try to cope with. I mean, you're basically coping with reality. Becoming conscious is a part of seeing and accepting reality, and so much of what we have takes us from that. And so the next one I'm going to have, the next video I'm going to have, we're going to talk about how the terror of living is translated into Steiner's work and how it's described biblically, if we can find it biblically, but I think we can for sure. And we'll put these things together, and hopefully we can make a plan for ourselves and allowing ourselves to become more conscious and finding power and confidence within consciousness, because I think people experience a real fear and also a sense of loss of control when they start becoming conscious and tapping into that. And people who are more luciferic could probably experience that as something mystical, when they're just actually coming in contact with themselves and their own consciousness. And then it's something that's so rare nowadays, it can be misinterpreted as a spiritual event. And while there's a spiritual aspect of it for sure, because we're spirits, it's very basic biology. It's very basic science. So we'll talk about that soon.